You're listening to the Back Home Network, presented by Homefield Apparel.
Physical basketball
I was at the games.
versus
You were
physical
not.
fouling.
You watched it on YouTube.
Anyway.
I saw the game. I watched the game at the
Well, we're here. I'm Bob Moats. Welcome to X's and Joe's, dedicated to decoding the winning formula in college basketball.
And I'm Mike Wiemuth, welcoming you to a special edition of X's and Joe's, a look back with Bill Murphy, the last Hurricane Hoosiers, the Cardiac Kids, and a Rose Bowl, recorded on the afternoon of Friday, December 12th, 2025. But before we get going on our conversation with Bill, we'd like to say some kind words about our title sponsor, Homefield Apparel.
Homefield Apparel, as you will. I'll go ahead. I just jumped right in there because, I mean, that's how excited I am to talk about Homefield.
Exactly. Well, just given the circumstances that happened last weekend, obviously a plenty to talk about related to Homefield Apparel.
Now, not only can you buy one Rose Bowl shirt from 1967 from Homefield, but now you can get another, you can get other Rose Bowl material through Homefield. Just go to their website, www.homefieldapparel.com, and celebrate IU's first Big Ten title since the Johnson administration. Granted, the Lyndon Johnson administration, but it was the Johnson administration. And basically add that 2025 to your set with your 87, 81, and 76 national championship shirts, as well as other Big Ten shirts through other sports, as well as your Rose Bowl inspired garb. You too, again, just looking at those at the vintage-esque offerings of Homefield Apparel.
Yeah, especially the holidays coming up. Again, we've spoken about the fact that Christmas is coming up, and so we definitely take advantage of the opportunity to use homefieldapparel.com to find all the best gifts you can for the sports fans that looking for those vintage options, celebrating their favorite college teams, especially for IU football fans now that the Rose Bowl is just a week away. So again, check all that out at homefieldapparel.com. So when we come back from a really quick break, we'll get started with our guest, Bill Murphy. First, a quick message about the Back Home Network, some other Back Home Network programming.
Hoosier Nation, are you tired of the same old takes? Say hello to Crimson Cast, the podcast that actually knows IU sports. Hosted by Galen Clavio and Scott Caulfield, they serve up sharp analysis, real talk, and just enough sarcasm to keep things interesting. Game previews? Check. Instant reactions? Double check. History lessons that make even our losses worth remembering? You bet. So whether you're tailgating at Memorial Stadium, pacing around Assembly Hall, or just avoiding Purdue fans, Crimson Cast has you covered. Search Crimson Cast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, and join the conversation today.
Welcome back to X's and Joe's. I'm Bob Moats with my good friend Mike Wiemuth, and we just brought in Bill Murphy.
Yeah, and just a quick introduction. Bill is a longtime IU fan, educator, coach, and author of a few books related to IU sports, specifically books detailing the 1967 IU Rose Bowl team, as well as the definitive biography of Branch McCracken. He was also a regular on the Hoosier Heartland podcast, hosted by our pals Ben and Robbie Malcolmson, as well as Kathy Chong. So, Bill Murphy, welcome to X's and Joe's.
Well, thank you very much, both of you. It's a wonderful treat to be here today.
Any chance we get some time to talk with you, Bill, about IU and IU athletics and the history of the institution? It's time well spent, and we just really appreciate you being on the show with us today.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it, Bob.
Yeah, you think, Bob, like when we've started this show, I had said at the beginning that we want to put together a list of sort of like prime guests, basically the ones we know that we wanted to have on the show at some point. I think if you remember, I had put at the top Galen Clavio to talk about like the Bobby Knight and the sort of the end of the 90s. The Malcolmson brothers to talk about, some of their experiences in podcasting and also IU fandom. The rest of the AC crew, obviously, Andy, Coach Tonsoni, all them. But also, my particular favorite one was try to get Bill Murphy on the show to do some deep dives on old IU athletics. So, and an early Christmas present for all of us, he is now here today.
And
Thank you, Mike.
And I would just add this. So as we've gotten to know Bill over the last, probably it's been about a year, right? That first conversation about a year ago when and in the middle, at the end of that conversation, right before the Zoom call let out, I found out where Bill lives. And I asked a question about some people. And he said, not only do I know him, I'm related to Ann. And it's funny because like my son Bennett and his cousin Ann and her husband Russell's 3 daughters, they hang out all the time. We hang out with the Wileys frequently. And I've been clear to tell this story because this story to me, Bill, is why we're here doing this. Because this IU love for IU athletics and the institution and really the state, it's multi-generational. And it's something that I'm trying to pass on to my son. I know that other families, who we're talking about, passing on to their children. And so in the room I'm in, about a month ago, they were here with the girls.
Okay.
And over in this corner over there, there's this little play area for Bennett with a little RV. And so Nora and Claire are climbing over Bennett. Bennett's jumping on them. The dogs running around trying to get in the thing. And Ann, Russell, and I are all here. My wife's sitting here in her chair kind of going, what are these people doing? Because we're all like, balled up. And Maya, the oldest, is here on the edge of the couch. And I never have seen what it's like to go through one of your first nail-biter IU games as a kid, as an adolescent. My response was to scream and like tears and stuff flying through the house and my father shutting it off and making me go to my room. Or some years pounding out the IU fight song on the piano and breaking keys. I did that too. But she was so just anxious and just like, how's this going to end? And I just kind of looked at her and said, look, kid, it's nerve-wracking, it's stressful, but it's just so invigorating. And if they pull this off, and then when they pulled it off, this place exploded. Like, the roof still has damage from blowing the top off this house because after Cooper made the catch, it was like, and I got to share that with good friends, but also got to see it through the eyes of a teenager really going through this for the first time. And for me, it's just so exciting to like see this, the excitement around IU football, and just thinking like, Bill, like when you were a kid, when Mike and I were kids going through that, whether it was John Pont or whether it was Bill Mallory for us for football or basketball, Branch or Bob Knight, right. It was like, man, it's just to have that again after all these years is just so special. And I think it makes it more special when you can share that with other people and pass it down generation to generation.
That's a great story. I love it. It reminded me of a couple of incidents that I had. In 1963, I was at the IU Purdue game in football, and actually on November the 30th, because that game actually was scheduled for November the 23rd. Mm-hmm. And as historic people know, November 22nd was when Kennedy was assassinated. So everything was canceled that weekend and postponed to the following weekend. So I normally went to those games as a knothole kid. And you would sit in section 1 or 2 in the knothole section. You pay your $1, go into the football game, and that's what I know, $1. Crazy. But you would pay your $1, go in, and I'd sit there, and my parents were sitting in our season tickets. And my dad, because the game was postponed for a week, he couldn't go, so I was sitting with my mom, and I'm not superstitious, but I am. Mm-hmm. And we were ahead the whole first half of that game in '63, which was really special because we had won the game on Marv Woodson's interception in '62
Okay.
and run back 92 yards for a touchdown to put us ahead at West Lafayette and win the bucket back for the first time in 11 years. Now, in that 10-year span, we had tied Purdue once, but as everybody knows, if you own the bucket and there's a tie, you retain the bucket. And so everybody was so excited in '62. So '63, here we are ahead at halftime and really excited about the possibility of winning the bucket 2 years in a row. And it started to get cold. It was November 30th. It started to get really cold. And my mom said to me, "You need to put your coat on." And I said, "No, I can't. We're winning." And and I was not old enough. I was 11 years old, so I wasn't old enough to really argue with her. And she informed me in no uncertain terms if I didn't put my coat on, we were leaving. So I put my coat on. In the last moments of the game, Purdue scored a touchdown to win, and I blamed her for the defeat the whole way.
That's awesome. Come on,
So
Mom.
Bill,
Hypothermia is nothing compared to the keeping the bucket.
no, you got it. Yeah,
No.
I'll warm up. I'll thaw out later, Mom. I got
Small
this under
sacrifice.
control.
That's right. Hey, we got to keep the bucket here,
Right.
And
So
years
real
later,
quick.
I actually have my own old oaken bucket in my IU room.
Oh, do you?
That
That's awesome.
I found an old bucket. I had a plaque put on it just like they have, and I have I's and P's on the bucket, but it's my bucket. There are more I's than P's on it.
The games I want to, I can be selective on my history. So going
That's
back to
right.
that, so what was at that time called the 17th Street Stadium, right? That's what
No,
they called.
that was in 1963. It was still at Memorial Stadium.
Right.
But yeah,
It's
you're right. It was called 17th Street. I'm
right.
sorry. I was thinking that you were going back to the stadium before,
The
because
10th,
the
7th, yeah, 10th.
Memorial Stadium was dedicated in 1960.
Right.
And we had 4 whopping home games that year.
Oh,
Two
geez.
Big Ten games and 2 non-Big Ten games. Marquette was one of them. Oregon was one of them. It's but when Memorial Stadium was built, it was a big deal. It really was. And what was interesting, when they built Memorial Stadium, the east side of the stadium is actually shorter than the west side of the stadium.
Okay.
And they did that to save money. And the athletic program was building a new football and basketball stadium, but they built the football stadium first because it brought in more money than the basketball stadium, even though you had 12 basketball games and maybe just 4 football games. But the price differential and the amount of people that could come made up for the difference. But I actually cut my teeth and first started rooting for IU at the old stadium, which was located right behind where the library is now.
Right.
So
many of you would remember that from, if you've seen the movie Breaking Away. That's where that's where the race would have been in the movie Breaking Away. And now we call it the Arboretum. In fact, Ken Gross Lewis used to tell a story that when they tore the thing down in the late 70s, early 80s, they had talked about maybe turning it into a parking lot.
Right. And actually, if you go down to Bloomington and you go there is actually there are actually a couple of pillars that are still there. One was one of the ticket office gates, and another was a pillar that they have up that are still there from that stadium. But it was it was a fun stadium to go to, but it was really, really old. And Memorial Stadium was amazing when they built it. Of course, you go and I take my grandkids to that stadium now, and it doesn't look anything like what I went through, because you had on the north and south, there was nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
The north had the limestone scoreboard, that was it. And both the north and south were, they had a slope that came down, and there were a lot of kids that went to the games with their parents that would just take cardboard boxes, and they spent the day, the game day, sliding down the hills. I
Wow.
was their age. I had no idea what they were doing because I was watching the game. I could not
A lot more
fathom
going on
going
the
to a
field.
game.
It's like I can sled at home.
Yeah,
I
I
can
mean,
slide
there
at
was
home.
no
I
way.
can't. I don't see this all the time.
I'm watching the game. I mean, that was, and you know, a funny thing, in 1966 we were playing Michigan State, and Michigan State that year tied with Notre Dame as the #1 team in the nation. And we were playing Michigan State before the Purdue game. It was the second to last game of the season, so it was the ninth game of the season. And there were two Michigan State players that we had. In those days, we had 3 or 4 really good players, and that was about it on the IU football team. And we had a wide receiver named Bill Couch, and he was a really excellent wide receiver. And in about the third quarter, they threw Rich Badower threw him a pass. He caught it. No, it was Frank Stavroff. I'm sorry. Frank Stavroff threw him a pass, and he caught it. And 2 Michigan State players grabbed him from behind, and a third Michigan State player grabbed his face mask and pulled him down. And they just ripped ligaments in both of his legs. He was done for the season. And actually, he was a junior. He went on to med school, and he didn't even try out for the
Hmm.
67 team. He was just done with football. But I was so incensed at what had happened that I went down to the door that led to the Michigan State locker room, and I was pounding on the door, challenging. Here's Here I am at 14 years old, and I was probably weighed all of 100 pounds, and I'm pounding on the door, challenging Bubba Smith and these Michigan State players to come out. I was going to take them on for hurting our player. I was very fortunate. No Michigan player came out. Now, had they come out, they would have either killed me or died laughing themselves. So.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Bubba Smith, for people who don't remember, was actually went on to become a great NFL player, but also an actor who was known for his size. He was literally he was in the Police Academy movies.
Yeah,
Right.
he was Hightower in the Police Academy movies. For those
Right.
of you of our generation who would know that, the one that ripped the seats out of the car, of
Right.
the Gremlin to drive it. Yes, that would be Bubba.
I think
That's who Bill
Bubba,
was
now,
challenging in a fight.
I could be wrong. Don't take me to the bank on this, but I think Bubba was 6'7". He was a big dude. He really was.
Yeah.
He was. But that definitely. If you ever want to look for a true fan card, Bill Murphy, you might have one in your wallet just based on that alone.
Yeah.
I mean, I've thrown my share of fits, but man, that one, we actually, because Mike, I don't think that happens today. Like, the amount of security, the best you could do is just put something out on TikTok or Instagram or Twitter or something, and just,
Right. You couldn't go pound on the locker room door and expect that they might come out and kill you, or
Yeah.
Right.
The state police are kind of all over most major college stadiums now, so that'd be very
Right.
difficult to get past even the state cops to perform
Right.
that little challenge.
Right. So So in this time, you're talking about how the stadium looked different. And Mike and I think we both remember. I never remember the limestone scoreboards other than what I would see on like the highlights of Big Red Football, like the old Channel 30 TV show that was produced out of Bloomington. That would be the weekly highlights, because that was back. There was a time, a long time, and older fans will remember that watching IU football on TV was a rare treat.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you might have one game a year that was on TV at the most. Usually, if they were on the road, because if they were at home, I was there. But if they were on the road, we listened to the game on the radio with Max Skirvin doing the broadcast. But yeah, it was a different experience. It really was. But it was a lot of fun. And to take the progression of Memorial Stadium, the north and south end zone had nothing there until the Wisconsin game in 1967.
Okay.
And for the Kentucky game and the Kansas game and the Iowa game, we just had the regular stadium. That was it. But they had decided, the administration had decided we could sell more tickets if we put some temporary bleachers up in the north and south end zone. And so they did that. And in fact, I have the ticket from the Wisconsin game, and my section 1 knothole section was a black marker was marked out the section 1, and it just says knothole above it. And so I paid my $1 and went to the knothole section, and that was that way for both the Wisconsin game and the Purdue game. And then for 68, they put up permanent bleachers that were there until we added the north end zone, and then we added the south end zone. So it's completely different now.
I have sat in those bleachers at least one time. I think I sat there for an Ohio State game in '98. I don't know, Mike. Maybe you were with me on that one. I don't remember. The one where it was Antoine Randall's freshman year when IU played them. But I remember.
I think we may have sat for that one. I sat in the bleachers. I think the end zone bleachers maybe once or twice, because I think the band used to sit there, right?
They did.
Yes, the band would sit there. Yes,
but it's like now when you have a 3-year-old and you're like worried about the kid falling through because those bleachers, it's like on a windstorm you might fall off of them, or they may fall. It's like those were always a little scary, to say the least.
Yeah.
Sitting in old high schools throughout the state of Indiana. But so now around the stadium at that time, because Mike lived in Dunhill for a few years, Dunhill Apartments, which is now long gone and buried. Varsity Villas is now there. What used to be Walnut Knolls, where Randy and Showtime the Cat lived. Within the bypass. And Mike, if you know, and you don't really want to know. And then going down towards College and Walnut, you had, where the Denny's was, which is now Lincoln Square, and now the hotels and, the Mexican Riata. All of these things. I'm assuming at that time in the 60s, all of that was basically just nice, solid Indiana woods or corn or meadow.
There were, when, and you have to remember that all my grandparents lived in Bloomington, and I'm old enough that I just walk around Bloomington on my own, and I knew more markers than I paid attention to street names, to be honest with you. I knew at 11th Street, I can remember right in the 60s, we used to go, there was a restaurant on 11th Street that was called the Satellite. And I talk about that in the Rose Bowl book, that you would walk in there and the burgers would come down. They had silver bins, and they were just mass producing hamburgers and French fries, and they just slide them down the bin, and you'd pick them up and then put them in the sack and go pay for them. And that was kind of a ritual we had when we first would go, we're first going to the football games and everything there. But
Wow.
there was, when Memorial Stadium was first built, Assembly Hall was not there at
Right.
all. And the football complex, Mellencamp Pavilion, was not there. You're right. It was either parking lots or just wooded area. And they used to have uh, on the south side of the stadium, they used to have old trailers, and they were large trailers, but they were they were married student housing.
Right.
And
Right. Well, that's
uh,
my parents lived there.
yeah,
Really?
Yeah.
So wait, Mike, were your parents married in college? Would they actually get married when they were
got
in
married.
college?
Yes. I guess it would have been what, 63, like 63, 64 around there. They got married. So they lived in married student housing. So
okay. And that the word housing is kind of a misnomer if you
Right.
think about it.
Well, being from Columbus, and when you would go to Columbus from Columbus to Terre Haute, or
Right.
like if my parents wanted to go to McCormick's Creek and take us there for the day, you would go by and you would see, I think it was Tulip Trace, the big one, the really large
Right.
one. And
Right.
when you're really little, you're like, oh, that's IU. And my parents would have to say, no, you don't get it. We're not driving through there, but it's all the way this way. And I mean, just getting that idea driving by the stadium, that where the married student housing was, Briscoe Dormitory, McNutt, and then on the other side, it was, basically it was that the wooded area. So
Right.
a lot of that had yet to be developed, is what. So you're pretty much just going to kind of like Beaver Stadium at Penn State, where it's just you all of a sudden you drive in town and boom, there it is, right?
Oh, I can remember when Memorial Stadium was built, it was such a big deal. I mean, it really was. It was like, oh, we're now a Big Ten team because we've gone from a 25,000 seat stadium to a 50,000 seat stadium. We doubled it.
Right. And around the same time, Michigan State built theirs, which is very similarly designed, right? I mean, that's
Right.
about the same era.
Right. Right.
But like
Of course,
Ross-Ade,
Michigan State was one of the last of the Big Ten teams to join the Big Ten, which used to be called
right,
the Western Conference.
Mm-hmm.
right.
Yeah, that thing like
Right,
that's like referenced even like the Michigan Fight song. I think it's where the Champions of the West comes from, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So do you want me to kind of go into the 67 season?
Yeah, let's. This is a good time for. We'll take a quick promo break.
Yeah,
and we'll do that after we get back from the promo break. So we'll just
when the final buzzer sounds in Bloomington, the conversation starts here. The assembly call is IU basketball. Live post-game shows, smart midweek breakdowns, and no empty hot takes. Jared Morris, Coach Brian Tonsoni, Andy Bottoms, and Ryan Phillips dissect lineups, sets, and recruiting so you know what really happened and what it means for the Big Ten season, March, and beyond. Join the live chat on YouTube, then catch the podcast on Spotify and Apple. Just search Assembly Call and be part of Hoosier Nation's most trusted post-game tradition.
And welcome back to X's and Joe's. I'm Bob Moats with my good friend Mike Wiemuth, and we're here with IU historian Bill Murphy, and we're going to kind of pick up talking about right now, after we talked about just kind of setting the scene for 60s football in Indiana, what it was like in 67, and just to kind of set that scene a little bit. IU was 1-8-1 the year before, right?
Right. We were 2-8 in 65, and then 1-8-1 in 66, and then we had these tremendous sophomores that were going to lead us the way in 67. But a lot of people don't remember that we had a lot of really good seniors on that 67 team. Ken Kazmarek and, uh, you know, we just, Ken just comes to mind as one, but we had Nate Cunningham, and it was just a great group. But so we start out in 67, and uh, Pont has to decide between his two quarterbacks. We've got Harry Gonzo, and we from Findlay, Ohio, and we have uh, John Eisenbarger from Muncie, Indiana. And John 6'3", Harry's 5'11". Well, they listed him at 5'11". He might have been closer to 5'10" or 5'9". But those are the two that are competing. And Pont has to decide which one he's going to have start at quarterback. Now, Harry, kind of interesting, Harry had two scholarship offers from the Big Ten, one from Indiana and one from Michigan State. But
Okay.
Michigan State wanted him to come as a swimmer because he was a world-class swimmer. And Harry, and also play football, but Harry decided he was going to come to IU. So Pont decides that he's going to put Harry as quarterback, and he's going to put 6'3" John Eisenbarger as a tailback that can also throw the ball. So he's going to, and that team was known as Big and Company. Big and Jade Butcher, B,
Uh-huh.
John Eisenbarger, I, and Harry Gonzo, G, and company was Terry Cole. And Terry Cole was from Mitchell, Indiana, and a he was a tremendous running back in high school, and he'd come to IU, and the line wasn't as good as needed to be in the Big Ten to really gain the yards he needed to gain. But he was perfect for Pont's system, so he became the fullback for John Pont's system, and Eisenbarger was the tailback. And the very first game of the season, we are. Go
Before
ahead.
you explain, okay, so for those of us who haven't seen a whole lot of footage and really don't understand it that much, how was Pont's system, let's say, different than others like
Duffy
Woody
Dory.
Hayes, right? Or at the same time when you start seeing that, like the Big 12, like the Big 8 at that time was running, they were running a variety of triple option type concepts.
Right. Well, what Pont knew he had is he had a dual threat in Eisenbarger and Gonzo because
Right.
they could both throw and they could both run. And, he felt like that John would be a better halfback because he was bigger. And
Okay.
they're playing in the Big Ten. It would just, his size would do him well. But that first Kentucky game, Harry ran for over 100 yards as a quarterback. I mean, it was tremendous what he could do. But so Pont's system was wide receivers, and of course throwing back then. If you passed 16 times a game, you were aerial offense.
Right.
You know,
Right.
people would not recognize it today,
No.
but it was a option play, and with Eisenbarger behind Harry and Cole behind Izo, Harry would sprint out a lot, and he would have the option of running the ball or pitching it to Izo or pitching it to Cole and letting them do the running. And then we
Okay.
also had a running fullback named Mike Kravosha who did a good share of running too for IU.
Yeah, it's interesting, Bill. I had not seen much footage of that 67 IU team until recently because, thanks to the internet, You can go on YouTube now and find just little snippets of old footage of pretty much any team, but specifically that IU 67 team. And I was watching the Rose Bowl highlights just the other day, preparation for this show.
Right.
And you're right. I mean, the thing that stood out to me, from like a scouting standpoint was, you're right. Gonzo was real fast for a quarterback. I mean, I think the first two plays of the game for IU on offense was Gonzo rolling right for like 10 yards and then rolling left for like 11 yards on the next play. So, I mean, you clearly see that offense, in terms of IU's focus on offense, you can really tell that he was really occupying a lot of defensive attention with his ability to use his legs for yardage.
He did. It was a lot of fun to watch. I tell you, that team was so enjoyable to watch. Nerve-wracking because, and when I get into the games, you'll understand why I say nerve-wracking. But it was so much fun to watch. And as I think I said to you guys before we went on the air here, that was a time period in the 60s where there was this saying going around that God is dead. And in Bloomington, the quote was, "God isn't dead. He plays tight end for IU." And if you were fortunate enough to watch those games, you totally understood why they said that.
Yeah. Well, maybe go through some of the games, Bill, because I know that you wrote the book on that season,
right?
And I believe you titled it "Cardiac Kids." So maybe kind of explain,
the title of that book is "Cardiac Kids." Yeah, "Cardiac Kids: A Season to Remember," because it was a season to remember. First game of season. The University of Kentucky is coming up to Bloomington to play. It's a beautiful Saturday afternoon, and Kentucky gets out in front in the first half, 10-0. And there's kind of a ripple in the stands of people saying, same old IU football team. This is kind of what we expect, same old team. And then in the second half, Harry hits Jade for a touchdown pass, and all of a sudden it's 10-6, and we're not successful in the extra point. So now it's 10-6, and we get into the fourth quarter, and we're running down the field. We're going down to the north. We're going the north side of the field, and Harry rolls out and hits Al Gage with a touchdown pass. And we're ecstatic. All right, we're ahead. And you look on the field and there's a yellow cloth on the field, and we're called for holding. And they bring that touchdown back, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, we thought we were going to win, but here it is, same old IU football team. And on the very next play, Harry rolls out again, and he sees Eric Stolberg in the end zone, and he throws it to Stolberg, but he overthrows Stolberg, and behind Stolberg is Gage, and Gage catches it again for a touchdown, and now we're ahead 12-6. Again, the extra point's not successful, but we end up, and then for the next 14 minutes, our defense suffocates Kentucky, and we win that game 12-10. And it's like, okay, we've got our one win for the season. And we beat Kentucky, which is even better. So that's really good. And then the next home game, the next Saturday, we're playing Kansas at home. And that was a game of field goals. And we beat Kansas 18-15. We had more field goals than they did, was basically what it amounts to. So then the third game. Go ahead.
You're saying a 3-point shootout between IU and Kansas. I've seen a few of those, but in a different world.
Yeah, it was a 3-point shootout, but not the same type you would think of today in basketball. Right. So we go to Champaign-Urbana. We're playing Illinois. Illinois is just recovering from, they were on probation like we had been. they were on probation a little bit later than us for their slush fund. And so we go in and we beat Illinois 20-7. And we had Illinois was marching down the field. We intercepted the ball, and we go back. We throw the ball in the stands after we get the interception because we're so excited, and we beat them 20-7. So then we have Iowa, and that was kind of a fun game because Iowa's decent. We're 3-0, and people are going crazy. That was after we beat Illinois. People started saying maybe people were passing out in the parking lots roses.
Oh
It was
wow.
like we're going to the Rose Bowl. It was a little premature, but we're going to the Rose Bowl, and so that game we're ahead of Iowa. Iowa marches down the field and scores, and they're ahead 17-14. And we get the ball, march down the south side. We're going to the south end zone, and there's about 3 minutes left. And we have fourth down and about 3-4 yards to go, but we're within field goal range. And Punt sends out the field goal team, and it was so funny because there were two reactions. The students were like, "Go for it, go for it," and the older people in the stands who had suffered for years with IU football were like, "No, kick a field goal, tie the game, and we're still undefeated. We'll be 3-0-1." You know, so they come out on the field. Harry Gonzo, our quarterback, is holding the ball for the kicker. And the ball is snapped, and all of a sudden you see Harry leap up when the ball snapped to him, and he runs around the left side of the field and gets all the way to the 4-yard line, first down, and we're goal to go on the 4, first down. And then Harry rolls out again because we did a lot of rolling out. We didn't.
Right.
Harry would drop back some, but he rolled out a lot. As part of it was that's the way the offense was planned. Part of it was also the fact that Harry was only 5'10", 5'9", 5'11", depends. Harry would like for me to say 5'11", so I'll say 5'11", and it was hard to see over some of those linemen, so he'd roll out and have a better view, and he hits Butcher in the end zone for a touchdown, and I have a picture of Jade hold it. Jade was really good about once he scored a touchdown, he'd hold the ball up in the air in triumphant salute, and he's holding it in front of. I've got a picture of him that he signed for me, holding it in front of two of the Iowa players. They weren't very happy. But we won that game 21-17.
Yeah.
So now
So
we go to
they're 4-0 at
Michigan.
this point, right?
Oh yeah,
4-0.
4-0.
Okay.
So now we go to Ann Arbor. Well, you know how much success we had at Ann Arbor over the years.
True.
We go to Michigan, and we're ahead 20-0.
Oh man.
I mean, we're killing them. I can tell you, I'm listening to it on the radio. All of us IU fans listening to this game on the radio are like totally amazed. It's like, nah, this isn't happening. I can't believe this. Well, that was when, because the Iowa game is when John Eisenberger, and that's how Iowa scored their go-ahead touchdown. John Eisenberger was our punter.
Okay.
And there was another slogan that year, and it was "Punt, John, punt."
I remember hearing this one. Yeah, I've heard
Because
that.
John would, on occasion, when the ball was snapped to him, decide he was going to run for a first down rather than punt the ball. And in that Iowa game, the first time, the Iowa lineman peeled back to go set up blocking for their the man that was returning the punt, and Eisenbarger made a first down. Well, that worked once. The second time he decided to do it, and we were like within our 30-yard line.
Mhm.
He decided to do it again. Well, this time they were waiting for John, and it wasn't
Oh man.
successful. And so they tackled him, and that's why they were so close and scored their go-ahead touchdown in that
So
Iowa game. And so after the game, there was the saying of John Pont saying to John Eisenbarger, "Punt, John, punt." And uh, and John got a call from his mom saying, "Punt, John, punt."
so
So
so the question so a lot of this was the players had that much, like you were talking about Harry Gonzo with a kind of a fake field goal,
oh yeah.
or Eisenberger just
Oh, we
just
were
did,
we
did
were
the kids
fly by the we were fly by night, fly by the seat of our pants football
did
team.
did Coach Pont just like keep like Pepto and Malox and 40-gallon drums on the sideline with these guys? I mean, it as a coach, that I'm just thinking going, I would lose my mind.
Yeah.
He had a lot of coffee on the sidelines, which doesn't help you any, but he had a lot of coffee on the sideline. And I will tell you, then against Michigan,
Yeah.
Pont or Izo decides to run a punt again. And again, Michigan stops him and scores. And that score went from 20 to nothing to 20 to 20. And Pont had benched Izo. I mean, he
Hmm.
didn't just scold him, he benched him. He was like, "Just sit on the bench. Get away from me.
Done
I
with
don't
you.
want you close to me." And when Michigan scored the tying touchdown, Harry went to Pont and said, "You've got to let Izo come back in the game. We have
Let
to
him out
have
of the
Izo in the game." And so
let him out of the
Pont,
doghouse.
the
Let him out of the
Pont let
doghouse.
him out of the doghouse. Pont put him on the field, and guess who scored the winning touchdown for IU?
That's the very same person.
Eisenbarger.
That's funny.
He was, and
He
Izo
redeemed
did it
himself.
on an option play where Harry rolled out and pitched it to Izo, and he ran down the sidelines for a winning touchdown. And we won that game 27 to 20.
Wow.
And then on October 28th, 1967, and I can remember I had to go to bed, so I've got my little transistor radio and I'm listening to the game in bed because we're out in Arizona, so the time difference is bad for
Hmm.
us on a Saturday night. And we killed Arizona 42 to 7, and that was the game that Harry scored a first touchdown, but then he got hurt and he was out for the rest of the game. And Mike
Really?
Perry from Broad Ripple High School in Indianapolis
Okay.
was number 18. He was number 18. He came in and directed, and that was Jade Butcher's game to shine. And Jade got a couple of touchdown passes, ran a punt back a long way, and that was that was our only blowout win, was 42 to 7 against Arizona.
Wow.
And then
And they played that in the middle of the the Big Ten
oh yeah,
season.
That's
I could tell you I can tell you basketball games and football games. Back then, you would have a game in the middle of the Big Ten season. When we have these two Big Ten games now, and then have a couple, we're going to have
mhm.
three non-conference games before we start playing Big Ten basketball
Yeah.
schedule again. For an old guy like me, that's nothing new. It's like,
Okay.
okay, yeah, I'm used to that. You
Okay.
know, uh, it's not like it has been in the past now.
Hmm.
So after the Arizona game, we come back and we have a game against Michigan State, and we're at East Lansing, and we win that game. And remember now, we're playing a team that the year before had won the national title.
Right.
So now they weren't in contention to win the Big Ten in '67, but they still were not a bad football team.
Yeah.
And we beat them 14-13. And Harold Marl, who was our center, has talked to me about that game. He said, when we scored the touchdown and the score was 13-13, and we were kicking the extra point, he goes, I was so nervous and concentrating so hard to make sure the snap was right where it needed to be so that we got the extra point. And we scored and we won that game 14-13. Interesting fact. Remember I told you that Harry was offered a scholarship to play at Michigan State?
Right.
All 3 years that Harry and Izo and Jade and Eric Stolberg and that group were at IU, and remember, freshmen didn't play, so they were just there for 3 years.
That's right.
We beat Michigan State every year of those 3 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we beat Michigan State. So now we're going to Minnesota to play. We are 8-0. Purdue is 8-0. Minnesota is 7-1 because they've already played Purdue and were killed by Purdue. And Purdue is at this time the number 3 team in the nation. This is going to sound familiar for this year's fans in a second.
Yeah.
So Purdue's 3-0, and we go to Minnesota, and the score is 7-7, and I'm like, yeah. Here we go again, guys. It's going to be close, but we're going to win this thing. And I am outside shooting baskets listening to the game because, again, it's not on TV. It's on the radio.
Right.
And so I'm in the backyard shooting baskets and listening to the game. It did not go well. We had a couple of penalties that took back another touchdown we had.
Okay.
And we end up losing at Minnesota 33-7.
Now, at that time
And-
was IU was ranked at that time, right?
Yeah, we were ranked. We fell out of the rankings, the top 10.
Okay.
But what happened was Minnesota was now 8-1. We were 8-1, and Purdue was 9-0.
Right.
And everybody was like, because Purdue couldn't go to the Rose Bowl because they had gone in 66, because Michigan State had gone in 65. The kids today are like, what are you talking about? You couldn't repeat going to the Rose Bowl. It didn't matter if
Right.
you won the Big Ten. You could not go represent the Big Ten, the Rose Bowl, 2 years in a row. So Purdue, who had finished second to Michigan State, went to the Rose Bowl in 66. So now Purdue can't play in the Rose Bowl in 67. So everybody's like, okay, Minnesota's going to go to the Rose Bowl because they beat us. Well, we have Purdue at home. It was a beautiful, sunny, 60-degree weather. It was perfect. In fact, I talked to Harry, and he was saying that they were having trouble fielding punts before the game because of the sun.
Okay.
They were like, okay, you've got to be real careful about doing this.
Yep.
Well, the day before, Jade Butcher, who had, he and Terry Cole were friends. Jade was from Bloomington. Terry Cole was from Mitchell. So they knew each other really well, even though Cole was a senior and Jade was just a sophomore. They get there, and Jade says on Friday night to Terry, he goes, you know what? I think this is going to be your game. You know, I think this is going to be a game for you. You're going to love this. You're going to be a star of this game. Well, as it turned out, he was right. because on one play, Harry gave the ball to Terry, and instead of doing an in sweep, Terry ran right up the middle, 63 yards for a touchdown
Oh man.
that put us ahead 19. We were ahead. We had 19 points at that time. Purdue had 7, and they went and scored again. So at the end of the game, and I will never forget this, at the end of the game, Purdue, and it's there like maybe 7, 8 minutes left in the game. Purdue is on the IU 4-yard line. We're ahead 19-14. Purdue is, I mean, they're within. They've got Leroy Keys, who was an All-American halfback, and they've
Okay.
got Perry Williams, who's also an All-Big Ten halfback. They've got a dual threat at halfbacks, and it's not going to be pretty. And they hand the ball to Perry Williams, and the guy sitting next to me shouts out. He's a Purdue guy. Couldn't stand him. He was he was a Purdue guy, and he shouts out. I love this because he's in this whole IU section. He shouts out,
Always one.
"There go them roses." And he doesn't
Oh.
get that out of his mouth. Then Perry Williams coughs the ball up in the air, and it falls on the ground, and we recover the fumble, and the ball now belongs to IU.
So
And go ahead.
so real quick, just we talked a lot about offensively, but defensively, when you look at these scores,
Oh, the
They-
defense was
they
the
were a steel
star
curtain.
of the
They were a
defense was
steel
the
curtain.
star of the 67 team. I mean, far and away, we had a tremendous defense. We really did. We had, whether it was Kevin Duffy, whether it's Ken Kazmarek, whether it was Nate Cunningham. I mean, we had a tremendous defense. We really did. And the scores I'm telling you, you get the idea that we did have a tremendous defense.
Yeah.
But the defense held. We recovered the fumble. We were very conservative, and this was and 60 was the magic number in the Purdue game. We
Okay.
recovered the ball, tried a couple of runs, and then Izo dropped back because punt called for a punt to try and get it out of our territory.
Okay.
And John Eisenbarger, and before he went on the field, John Ponce said to Izo, "Punt the ball, John. Punt the ball." And Izo, the ball was snapped to Izo, and he kicked the ball. He hit a 63-yard punt.
Wow.
Wow.
And backed Purdue up. They never got close enough to sniff. Of course, they had to get a touchdown. Field goal would do them no good. But we ended up winning that game 19-14. We walked out of that stadium. IU was 9-1, tied for first place in the Big Ten, with Purdue that was 9-1, with Minnesota that was 9-1. We all had one loss in the Big Ten, and because IU had never been to the Rose Bowl, and because we had beaten the number 3 ranked Purdue Boilermakers, the committee offered us the opportunity to go to the Rose Bowl, which is that brings up another very interesting fact. The first time that the Big Ten had the agreement to play in the Rose Bowl was the year 1946, which is really interesting because if you think about it, in 1945, we would have been the first Big Ten team to go to the Rose Bowl. We missed it by a year.
Our good friend Galen Clavio said this back in September. And I mean, after Hoosier the Bison has been resurrected. reinstituted. His new pet project is he says there's a strong case based on national champions of that era that the 45 team should be recognized as a shared national champion.
Oh,
and
he's
had they gone
absolutely
to the
right.
Rose Bowl, that honestly, this is actually something where we can make a case to show that, say, that Taliaferro 45 group coached by Bo McMillan deserves consideration as a co-national champion because of the season they had.
Well, just to go back to that 1945 team a lot, and
Yeah.
when I was at the Mellencamp Pavilion for homecoming, and in 2007, and I was signing my book, and I was sitting next to George Taliaferro, who was signing a book written about him, and we had great conversations. But the Army team was number one in the nation that year.
Right.
Our final ranking was number 4. We had, and it wasn't just George Taliaferro,
Right.
but Ted Kluszewski of Cincinnati Reds Hall of Fame was on that team. And Pete Fios, who is in the college football Hall of Fame, was on that team.
Number
And
one
what a lot
draft
of
pick
people
that year too.
What a lot of people don't remember, and Mutt Deal was on that team as well. He was one of the captains. That 1945 team that was 9-0-1, the only team we tied with was Northwestern. Now, a lot of people, if you say that today, they're like, you tied with Northwestern?
Different era.
You know,
It was a different era.
Northwestern was really good back then.
Yeah.
Plus, the first game, we didn't have everybody back from World War II yet.
Okay.
And so we played with a skeleton group in that first game because of the fact that now many of them were there, but they hadn't had a time to practice at all.
Okay.
They were straight from the European theater and playing a game with a practice or two under their belt, and that was it.
I'm just setting a scene in my head of this kid coming back. It's July, August 1945, and they end up at Camp Atterbury here near Columbus, being basically just being decommissioned, just getting their de-enlistment papers, and immediately hopping on, maybe hitchhiking Old 46 to get to, or to go through Morgantown through Martinsville to get to campus.
Right.
To go, because they want to get there right before the semester starts. They got to get there for football season. That is like, I got to get on campus now. But I could just see this kid with an August 15th de-enlistment date, holding his papers in one hand and his IU housing or his IU acceptance letter in the other, going, "Okay, coach, I'm ready to play."
Absolutely.
It's mind blowing just how fast that would have changed a kid.
It was a complete different time. And Bo McMillan, and there are a couple books written about Bo McMillan, and any IU fan who really wants to learn more about the Bo McMillan era, which Bo is still the only coach we had that coached at IU over 10 years that left with a winning record.
Really?
Even Mowry, with the success he had a losing record at IU.
Right.
Of course, a lot of that is because in '84, his first year, we were 0-11 because he redshirted every single freshman. So he was looking at the future. But Bo McMillan was quite an innovator. In fact, in that 45 year, we were playing at Minnesota, and it was a rainy day, and he had taken the quarterback, and we had more than one quarterback at that time because Taliaferro threw some, Raimondi threw some. I mean, we had different quarterbacks. He had taken the quarterbacks and the center into his hotel room the night before, and he was putting the footballs in the bathtub, and they were
Okay.
soaked. And
Hmm.
he had the center snapping the ball to the different quarterbacks so they could get used to
To a
handling
slick,
a
a
wet
s-
football,
and
which is
as we've talked like Mike and I over the years about just how equipment has made all the difference in the world, like footballs and basketballs, baseballs, gloves, bats, whatever the equipment was in that era, it's not built the same way. Like the synthetic materials they're using now. Yeah,
oh yeah.
there we are. So it is different. So McMillan was definitely an innovator,
Oh, he
and
was. He was a great coach, and we lost him. He left after the 1947 season. We beat Purdue the last game of the season. Got to get that in. But he left because the Detroit Lions offered him a contract. Now remember when we went to the Rose Bowl, that year IU tore up Pont's contract and
right.
gave him a bonus, and he signed for the '68 season for $28,000 a year.
Wow.
I know. Think about that in today's world.
Yeah.
But
But in that era, that's a pretty good chunk of
oh
change
yeah, it was good money. I mean, it
for
was good
especially
money,
for a
but it's
college coach at that time. At
at
that time,
that time, but it still was, we're night and day from what
no.
goes on now.
Yeah.
Look at Signetti's latest contract, and you'll know.
Right,
So
right.
we're gonna. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take a quick promo break, and then we're gonna come back, and then we're gonna go back into the '67 Rose Bowl, and then kind of wrap some football, and then also kind of talk simultaneously. That's around the same time that Branch had left basketball and gave him the program over to Lou Watson. So
Right.
we'll hit that up after this break.
Okay.